It's Wednesday, February 27. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke yesterday tabled the license and regulate microcredit institutions that provide financing to individuals and micro, small and medium-sized enterprises to discourage microcredit institutions from lending money at excessive interest rates and from engaging in predatory lending practices, and for connected matters in Parliament. Basically, it seeks to enable greater participation of MSMEs in government contracts while facilitating consumer protection. Minister Clarke says his ministry seeks to expand economic opportunity for Jamaicans, as it is imperative to foster a financial system that incentivizes informal businesses to formalize their operations.
This government is concerned about access to finance. This government wants all Jamaicans to have access to finance. The microcredit bill, Mr. Speaker, deals with access to finance for those among us who depend on microcredit institutions for financing. Low-income households and informally operated MSMEs. The Microcredit Act, Mr. Speaker, seeks to bring regulation to that sector to ensure that Jamaicans are not subject to predatory lending practices, Jamaicans are not subject to excessive interest rates, and that Jamaicans are not subject to the abuse on the part of unregulated microcredit institutions.
The bill's arrival to the tables of Parliament follows a year of its development, ironing out the specifics, as, according to the Finance Minister, with more than 97% of companies providing goods and services in Jamaica classified as MSMEs, these businesses generate significant employment and economic activity. Over the years, the ministry has received complaints regarding the high interest rates being charged by microfinance institutions. Justice Minister Delroy Chuck yesterday opened the debate on Law Reform Amendment of Penalties Act 2019. According to the minister, updating penalties is also one of the measures being taken by this government under the justice reform agenda. In its analysis of the justice system, the 2007 Justice Sector Reform Task Force opined that one of the problems plaguing the justice system was the lack of consistency of the laws and outcome of various legal processes, including, for example, inconsistency in sentencing, which contributes to uncertainty.
It was towards that end the Legal Reform Department undertook a project through which over 800 laws were reviewed. Mr. Speaker, the process is tedious and great effort was required to ensure that every single outdated penalty was captured. From this review, certain recommendations were made to the responsible ministries for the updating of laws falling under their respective portfolios.
In its analysis of the justice system, the 2007 Justice Sector Reform Task Force opined that one of the problems plaguing the justice system was the lack of consistency of the laws and outcome of various legal processes, including, for example, inconsistency in sentencing, which contributes to uncertainty.
For example, Mr. Speaker, according to Section 52 of the Criminal Justice Administration Act, if a person is convicted of an assault and battery on any officer of the court while at court, or any justice of the peace or police officer while in execution of his duty, such person shall be liable to a fine not exceeding $40. That is 40 Jamaican dollars, Mr. Speaker, or up to 1 year in prison. Even with sentencing guidelines, Mr. Speaker, the courts cannot levy a penalty above what the law prescribes. This is just one of the many ridiculous penalties we have on the books. Mr. Speaker, the updating of penalties is also one of the measures being taken by this government under the justice reform agenda.
The material provisions of this bill specifies the amendments of about 27 acts, including the Bail Act, the Corruption Prevention Act, the Criminal Justice Administration Act, the Dangerous Drugs Act, the Muslim Marriage Act, the Obia Act, the Offences Against the Person Act, the Public Service Enquiries Attendance of Witnesses Act, and the Status of Children Act. Investigators probing the February 2 murder of East Portland Member of Parliament, Dr. Linvale Bloomfield, have again taken a man into custody as the probe deepens. The 21-year-old, who was first detained by the cops on February 13 and released 24 hours later, was again picked up in Buff Bay, Portland on Monday. The police indicated that he gave statements to investigators alleging that he was a close friend of the late MP, who was killed at his Paisley Gardens home in the constituency. Cell phone records also revealed several conversations between them. Local Government and Community Development Minister Desmond McKenzie says the new Anti-Litter Act will place greater emphasis on compliance to minimize the illegal disposal of waste. Speaking with the press, Minister McKenzie said further amendments are to be made to the Act following recommendations made by Cabinet. He pointed out that the new Anti-Litter Act will impose stronger penalties, including higher fines for illegal dumping. The local government minister says the document, which is still being reviewed, will be submitted to Cabinet shortly for approval. Minister McKenzie was addressing a handover ceremony for 11 compactor garbage trucks in Kingston recently. Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Senator Ruel Reid, reported a successful administration of the first sitting of the primary exit profile examination on Tuesday. The minister and a team from the ministry visited several schools in St. Anne to get a first-hand view of the administration of the ability component of the examination, which has replaced the Grade 6 Achievement Test. Reid also offered words of encouragement to the first cohort of Grade 6 students to sit the examination and also got feedback about their handling of the test. Speaking to the Jamaica Observer, he said, quote, "I'm very impressed, very proud of my team at the Ministry of Education, the principals and the teachers. All the schools have been well prepared. Students are very confident and overall, I think Jamaica can be very proud," end quote. He reiterated that the ministry pulled out all the stops to ensure that students and teachers were adequately prepared for the examination, with adequate resources being dispatched to primary-level institutions to boost preparedness. The Barbados-based Caribbean Examinations Council Tuesday said poor preparation during the January sitting of the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate (CSEC) is due to the continued high levels of absenteeism. CXC Registrar Glenroy Cumberbatch said that 89.5% of absentees in the region, being age 17 and over, is a major concern that needs to be earnestly addressed. He said there was significant decline in the number of candidates this year, with 14,233 entries compared to 20,194 candidate entries back in 2018. Caribbean Cement, Jamaica's sole manufacturer of cement, posted a record-breaking revenues profit of $2.4 billion in its latest financial year. The restructuring of the inventory and manpower and other efficiency measures, as well as investments in the Rockfort, Kingston-based plant, are cited as reasons for the record revenue. Sales by the cement producer rose 6% to $17.5 billion, while its net profit more than doubled from $1.1 billion or $1.31 per share to $2.47 billion or $2.90 per share. It's been 5 years since Caribbean Cement exited its dark period that was characterized by quarterly and annual losses from 2009 to 2013. The US dollar on Tuesday ended trading at Jamaican $130.18, down by 84 cents. That's according to the Bank of Jamaica's daily foreign exchange trading summary. Meanwhile, the Canadian dollar ended trading at Jamaican $98.77, down from Jamaican $100.01, while the British pound sterling ended trading at $172.13, up from $169.55. In regional news, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the regional group CARICOM must act decisively to strategically seize opportunities that the changing world circumstance presents. He made the call as the outgoing chairman of CARICOM in Ambassador St. Kitts on Tuesday. Under his chairmanship, Prime Minister Andrew Holness led action in responding to concerns of fair treatment of CARICOM nationals. The new procedures on the refusal of entry was adopted and implemented in August 2018. Provisions are stated in the Caribbean Single Market and Economy regime to allow for free movement of persons, CARICOM skilled nationals and their family through the signature of the Protocol on Contingent Rights was also done. 10 countries have so far signed that protocol. According to Prime Minister Holness, the private sector in the region must spur growth and development. He called on regional governments to take all necessary steps to allow for mutual recognition of companies incorporated in CARICOM member state and trim the red tape within or domestic space to provide greater opportunity for intra-regional investment. As was reported, millions of Cubans voted overwhelmingly last weekend for a referendum on a new constitution. Richard Richards provides the details on the vote.
Sunday last, 24th of February, as it was expected, by large majority the people of Cuba ratified the constitutional referendum of the Republic in its final process of approval.
Según lista actualizada.
The preliminary information given this Monday evening in Havana by Alina Balseiro, President of the Electoral National Commission, stated that out of 7,848,343 citizens in the island and from abroad, representing the total of voters who deposited their tickets in the ballot boxes, 86.8%, this is 6,816,169 electorates, stamped a yes on the voting tickets, and by doing so, being majority, ratified the new constitution that will guide the present and future destiny of the country. Only 706,400 persons, representing 9% of the voters, said no to the new law of laws. As I said previously, the approval of this popular referendum was expected, due to the fact that this constitution was practically built up by the people. Imagine that this process led to 133,681 assemblies throughout 12,635 constituencies, workplaces, universities, schools, and different ministries in order to discuss one on each of the constitutional articles. These meetings ended up in more than 1,700,000 opinions of the electorates, including 783,174 new proposals and over 6,000 modifications. As a result of these facts, out of the 755 paragraphs of the original text of the constitutional project, only 8 were not modified or eliminated. Among the most relevant items in this new constitution, you may find that the executive power, concentrated now in the figure of the President of the Councils of Ministers and the Council of State, Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez, will be shared onwards with the future designation of a Vice President and the re-establishment of the post of Prime Minister. Also important is the new concept of marriage, which is now determined as the union of two persons, not as it was registered before, as the union of a man and a woman. Direct from Cuba, Richard Richards, Canal Caribe.
In sports, Jamaica Athletics Administrative Association, the JAAA's president, Dr. Warren Blake, has thrown his hat into the ring for the top post at the North American, Central American, and Caribbean Athletic Association presidency. A new president for the regional association will be elected at the next IAAF Congress, which takes place in Mexico on July 1 and 2. Current President Victor Lopez of Puerto Rico will not be seeking re-election. Blake says he is contesting because Jamaica's reputation and success on the world stage demand the representation it deserves. He says, quote, "We are the third most successful nation in the world, so we should have a voice regionally and internationally," end quote. Nevertheless, he believes Jamaica's global track and field appeal will have a major influence on the final result. The NACAC, founded in December 1988, is one of the 6 area associations of the International Association of Athletics Federations. Jamaican Olympic middle distance athlete Kemoy Campbell was released from the New York Presbyterian Columbia Medical Center on Tuesday, 17 days after collapsing while competing at the Melrose Gardens Games in New York. On Sunday, Campbell shared via social media that doctors could not determine the cause of his heart stopping while he participated in the men's 3,000 meters event at the Armory in New York City on February 9. The 28-year-old advised that he would be forced to take some time off from running and that an unplantable cardioverter defibrillator would be implanted on Monday. The ICD was placed to shock his heart back into rhythm in the event of a reoccurrence. And that's the news. Thanks so much for watching PBCJ. Remember, we are the People's Station.